Hello, credit union friends. Welcome to this episode of Three Questions. I'm Greg Michlig, President and CEO at CUInsight.com, and it's great to be joined by Shanthi Shanmugam, CEO and co-founder of Casap. Shanthi, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Greg.
Absolutely. I know our paths have crossed a number of times as we were talking before we hit record, and always good to hear from you. I know our audience is eager to hear your valuable insights, so let's jump into those three questions. The first one is disputes are one of the most data-rich interactions a credit union has with its customers. So, why has that data been sitting there unused for so long?
I mean, that is the question of the century, which is just like as we think about bringing agentic AI into our credit unions, it is as good as the data that you give it. And when we think about a dispute, you're totally right. It's like, what is a dispute? It's a member coming to us telling us a story, right? They're telling us something that's happened or that didn't happen, money moved when they didn't want it to, or they paid for something and they got something they didn't expect. And that's very rich in data, very rich in context. And when you look at that across, okay, what did they say? And then what kind of member are they? Or do they have an established relationship with us? All right, what about this transaction? Do we know this merchant? Have we dealt with this? Have other members brought up issues with this merchant? And just as I just listed out two or three different questions, that's at a minimum across five different systems for an average credit union. So one aspect is definitely like system fragmentation. And, when it's like so hard to get, it's hard to use it. But the other thing is, let's say we even got all of that data in one place. It definitely takes a keen eye to figure out, okay, well, Shanti said this, but that doesn't really match with what we see here. And you know what? She said something like this 2 weeks ago. Right? And we don't have time to go, And I think that's the other call out is now we have this opportunity, a privilege even, to really pick and choose what we want to spend our time on. And I think this is where we need to spend our time, which is yes, let's get our data in one place, but how do we actually spend time with it, use it to actually show up for our members in a way that we've never been able to before?
That showing up is really important, especially in the credit union landscape, being there and having that personal type of interaction and using the data to do that. Most people, when they think about fraud, they assume that it's something that happens to the credit unions from the outside or the bank or the financial institution. So, when did first-party fraud flip that assumption, and why hasn't the industry caught up?
Yeah, that is such a good question. I mean, before starting KSAP, I was the second product hire Robinhood. And back in 2017, I don't know if you remember this, but literally everyone and their mothers wanted to buy Bitcoin and crypto. And I'd launched Robinhood Crypto back then. And I remember sitting in our risk committee and thinking about, well, what's going to happen here? And well, the fraud that we were worried about was someone attacking the accounts and stealing people's cryptocurrencies. We were worried about someone, buying your data or my data from an Equifax breach and pretending to be us. And that's what we call third party fraud, right? It's not Shanti, it's someone trying to pretend to be Shanti. And then over COVID, there was just like this flip. And what really happened, and I talk about this quite often now, is like there was this rising awareness through social media. I have a whole folder of TikTok videos and Reddit threads and of people just teaching each other how to get free money at the end of the day, right? Someone says, "Hey, I just bought a TV. Wouldn't it be nice to have the $3,000 I spent on it too?" Yeah, of course it would be nice, but that's a crime. But the issue is people don't see this as a crime. They see this as a victim. It's victimless. They don't see it as hurting the credit union, hurting the bank. Like, we have so much, they have money anyways. It's all good. Like I need to make ends meet. So one aspect of it is rising awareness and this level of just acceptance. It's not seen as a problem, as a crime. And I think the other aspect too is, and I feel sad to say this, but given how I would say archaic some of our tools are to fight this, there's no repercussions to it. If you think about it, let's say someone comes to their credit union and says, "Hey, I didn't buy this TV," when they totally did. What's the worst that could happen? Their credit union can say no. It's not really that bad. right? So there's no repercussions to it. And when there's no repercussions, well, show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome. Like people will just keep asking for it, and they'll keep committing first party fraud. And I think there's a really thoughtful way to approach this. Like when I think about bringing AI to this moment that really matters, this moment where you can show up for your members and have their back, I think it's about hyper personalizing it, right? Understanding. I think of this nirvana of this of disputes where you get an instant resolution for honest members, but you don't lose money to the less honest ones. And maybe you call them out and you say, Shanti, I heard the story last time too. And by the way, if you keep, losing your card, your plastics of privilege, I'm not going to give you your card back, right? And enabling credit unions to have a more thoughtful conversation rather than write-off threshold where they say, hey, we're overwhelmed with volume. Anyone less than $50, let's just give them their money back. What do you think is going to happen? They're going to keep coming back for $50. So that's our opportunity with first party fraud.
Yeah, yeah, you painted a really vivid picture with the example and just explaining how people are taking advantage of the systems, but also just the good intentions maybe of what a credit union may be trying to do for their members. But you have to hold them accountable and make sure the fact that you're talking about being able to identify perhaps the members that are trustworthy versus those that aren't so much is really a great inflection point. And speaking of inflection points, we're there with agentic AI, and they can resolve disputes in seconds that used to take humans days. And I know that because I was in payments for a while and understood the dispute process then, and even what it is today. But what does that change, that AI piece, the agentic piece, unlock for financial institutions and for members?
Yeah. I always think about like I actually think agentic AI unlocks a very human component of the relationship between a credit union and a member. And this might be a hot take because I know that's not usually what people are saying. They don't usually say human and agentic AI in one breath unless it's to say replace them, which is not what I think that we should be doing. When I think about something human, I think about, let's think about our friendship, Greg, and, a relationship here. Like you understand me, I understand you. You were just telling me that you dropped off your youngest at college. And I think about how agentic AI enables the humans to kind of pull themselves out of like the manual day to day that honestly are sometimes the worst parts of their jobs and actually get them to spend more time on these very human interactions and these relationships. And when I think about what that means in disputes, I think about a dispute is a moment that matters. It's a moment where a member is asking themselves, okay, this is when I'm going to know, like, does my credit union have my back or not? And it's a messy conversation. It's a complicated conversation. It's their version of reality doesn't match the credit union's version of reality. Well, let's figure out what is reality and let's help them do that. But hyper personalizing it at that moment, can that employee at the credit union know that Shanti's an established member, that she doesn't usually buy TVs at Best Buy at 2 in the morning, 3 states over, that everything we know about this transaction totally checks out with your story. Well, in that interaction, I can show up in a different way than, oh, wow, this is Shanti's third dispute. We've lost all of her previous disputes. She's saying that she didn't do this, but this is a card present transaction. And like, there's something fishy. I really need to dig in a bit more. And I think, if I were to summarize it, I'd say two things. Agentic AI enables us to hyper personalize our interactions, which really helps us build those deeper relationships, like truly build a deep relationship. And then the other thing, when we think about, first party, why is it so hard to take everyone at face value? Well, it's because for every one person telling the truth, there's like three people maybe telling half truths, right? And in that world, I think, I think it's just really important to think about how as credit unions are services to the membership, not any one member. Right now, it's really hard for folks on the front line to say no, even when something feels fishy. So having agentic AI kind of support their hunch, right? Having agentic AI help them make decisions consistently enables credit unions to still be extremely kind establishments, right? But still really, hold to truth. and make it so that they don't get taken advantage of. And like, that's what I'm excited about, bringing agentic AI into this process.
Well, Shanthi, I know we appreciate you bringing that into the process and bringing it into the credit union space. Great background from Robinhood, but we are pleased to have you in KSAP working with credit unions, and always a pleasure to connect with you. I appreciate you taking the time to join me on this interview today.
Thank you, Greg. It is such an honor and privilege to be part of the credit union community. So I really appreciate the platform to share a few things of what I think about. So thank you.
Very good. And I look forward to the next time that our paths cross when we're out on the road. Always good to see you, and always good to have our viewers take in this great information. I want to thank them for also tuning in and watching this 3 questions video interview. We'll see you all next time.